Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to your very first lesson sa physics. Now, to study physics, we need to be able to describe certain quantities. And one of the ways that we can describe quantities is by means of whether a quantity uh, has a magnitude. Of course, all quantities have magnitude, but some quantities can be described also by a direction to which that quantity goes to. Okay, so we can classify quantities in two ways. Okay? So pwede natin i-classify as ang isang quantity or ang ilang quantity as scalar quantities. In this case, we only describe their magnitude, which means na or ang example ng mga quantities na ito ay time, okay, and pressure, okay, position, okay, and so on and so forth. Another way to describe quantities is not just through their magnitude, but also in the direction to which this quantity is moving, okay, towards. Okay? Halimbawa, syempre, narinig nyo siguro yung displacement, velocity, and acceleration, at saka force. Okay, so, ang focus natin ngayong araw is to learn about how to mathematically handle itong mga vector quantities. Okay, so ang pag-aaralan natin ay vector mathematics. Okay, so we will begin with the description of what a vector is. Okay, so an example ng isang vector ay displacement. And to describe a displacement, gumagamit tayo ng isang position. Okay, we describe a starting position, okay, which we see here, okay, a starting position, and then an ending position. And then to describe yung position na yan, we usually draw an arrow from the starting position towards the ending position. So ito yung arrow nito, itong blue na arrow. Okay. So from the starting position to the end position. Now this arrow represents the vector quantity, which is displacement. So the length of the arrow describes yung magnitude ng vector, and yung orientation kung saan nakaturo yung arrow describes yung direction. So the magnitude describes specifically in this arrow represents the magnitude of displacement and the direction of the displacement. Note that when we describe vector quantities such as in this example, hindi nagmamatter kung ano yung path na tinake nung object. So if the object started from P1, okay, at kung ito yung path na tinake niya, okay, and natapos siya at P2, yung path na yan ay hindi nagmamatter. Okay, but ang nagmamatter lang is yung P1 at saka yung P2, yung start position at saka yung end position. And that's where we draw the arrows. Okay, so from the starting position to the ending position. Now, if that arrow or if that starting position and the ending position is the same, so halimbawa, ito sa figure na ito, if we have a path that looks like this, okay, the starting position and the end position are both the same, okay, then the total displacement is 0. Kasi the magnitude of the displacement vector is 0 dahil starting at saka yung ending position is exactly the same. Okay, now, of course, if it so happen na ang starting position natin ay yung position P2 and then yung ending position natin ay yung position P1, then we draw a vector from the starting position to the ending position. Okay, and now we have a vector, okay, that has a displacement which is the same quantity, but the direction is opposite towards each other. So if we represent this as vector A, okay, and this as vector B, then in that case, vector B is just the negative of vector A. So they have the same displacement, okay, but their direction is opposite. And yung representation natin ng direction nila ay through this negative sign. So the negative sign connotes na opposite sila in direction. Okay, so napansin nyo na drawing na nirepresent ko yung vectors in letters, okay, na merong arrow sa ibabaw. Okay. In the book, pareho lang naman yung representation, but ginagawa nilang boldface yung vector na yun. If you see this, na merong absolute value, then you're referring to the magnitude of vector A. Okay. Okay. Now, if you have questions at any point, just pause the video, record the timestamp, and then write your question down on a piece of paper. Pagkatapos, when you finish with the video, you can send me your questions via email. Okay? And don't forget to write the timestamps. Or if you prefer, you can take screen captures and make notations to the screen captures nyo. And then you can also ask your questions using your screen capture. Okay. Okay. Now, the first vector operation that we're going to do is addition. Okay. Since vectors have or require not just magnitude but also direction, hindi straightforward yung pag-add ng mga vectors. So we can add vectors graphically. Okay. So this is the first way of adding vector graphically. So if we have vector A, which we can see here, oops, wrong color. We have vector A, we can see here, and then vector B, you can see here. To add these two vectors, to add vector A and vector B, mapapansin nyo, we draw vector A first, and then yung vector B ay yung buntot ng vector B ay ilalagay natin sa ulo ng vector A. Okay? So yan na yung vector B. To draw the sum of these vectors, ang gagawin natin is yung buntot ng vector A nung unang vector, yun yung starting point. At yung ulo ng vector B, yung pangalawang vector, yun yung end point. And we draw the vector, we draw an arrow from the starting point to the end point. Now that arrow represents the sum of vector A and vector B, which we now call as vector C. Okay, so that's the graphical, this graphical method. We can also see that if instead we add vector B, plus vector A, ang mangyayari doon is we draw first vector B. Okay? And then yung buntot, to add vector A, yung buntot ng vector A ay lalagay yung sa ulo ng vector B. Okay. And then yung buntot ngayon ng B, yung starting point, at yung ulo ng A, yung end point. So we draw a vector from vector B, from the starting point to the end point. At yan ngayon yung sum ng vector B at saka vector A. Vector B plus vector A, which we now call vector C. Okay? So notice na yung adding vectors, okay, ay associative. Okay, so A plus B is equal to B plus A. No, not associative, but okay. So yung order ay hindi nagmamatter. Okay, commutative. Okay, commutative, yun yung hinahanap kong word. Okay, vector addition is commutative. Okay, there's also another way to draw this graphically. So, ang gagawin natin is first, yung dalawang vectors ay i-drawing natin na tail to tail. So, vector A and vector B. So, yung dalawang tails nila ay magkadugtong. Then, we draw a parallelogram. So, a line that is parallel to vector B, and then another line that is parallel to vector A. So, yung ating starting point ngayon ay dun sa buntot ng dalawang vectors at yung end point natin ay dun sa intersection ng dalawang parallel lines. So, from the starting point to the end point, we now have yung sum ng A at saka ng B. Okay? So, that's vector. That will be vector C. Okay? Okay. Now, if it happens na yung vector A at saka vector B ay pareho yung orientation. Okay, so yung sum ng vector A at saka vector B, which is now vector C, okay, yung magnitudes nila will be as if walang, ang tawag dito, as if wala tayong pakialam sa direction. Okay? And if yung isang vector naman is opposite the other vector. So, ang mangyayari dun is that parang mong sinubtract yung pangalawang vector from the first vector. Like, in this example, yung vector A is pointing towards the right and vector B is pointing towards the left. Okay? Yung resulting vector ay itong vector C, okay, which is nothing but yung magnitude ng A minus magnitude ng B. Okay. This is also the same as taking the difference of the magnitudes between A and B, okay, which will give us the magnitude of C. Okay. Okay. So we now see if we have more than two vectors, we can continue to use itong method, itong graphical method, okay, in this way. Diba? So itong method na ito, ang unang method is yun nga, idudugtong mo sila tail to head, diba? So yung vector A, okay, idinugtong mo yung ulo ng vector A, dinugtong mo sa buntot ng vector B, and then yung ulo ng vector B, dinugtong mo sa buntot ng vector C. Okay? So yung starting point ay yung buntot ng unang vector at yung end point ay yung ulo ng huling vector. So yung resultant vector ngayon, okay, ay from the starting point towards the end point. Okay, so yan yung vector R. Okay. Okay, sandali. Of course, you can also add them in a sequence, which is yung pinapakita dito sa figure. Dito lang sa figure, ang ginawa is, una muna yung vector A, and then vector B, and then yung sum nila is described by vector D. Okay. Now, if we add vector D, which is the sum of A and B, to vector C, okay, yan yung, ang makukuha natin is this vector. Yeah. So yung resultant vector. Similarly, we can add vector B at saka C first. So kung i-add muna natin vector B, okay, ulo ng B sa buntot ng C, okay, we use vector, yung tail ng unang vector B, and then yung buntot ng huling vector C. Okay, starting point to end point, okay, yan yung vector E. So this is B plus C. Then we add vector A to vector E. Ang E is just B plus C. So ngayon, ang resultant vector is from the tail of vector A to the head of vector E. At yan yung result. So basically, ang difference nito sa dalawa is, ito is A plus B. Yan yung vector D. And then, inad yung C. So plus C. Then we get vector R, the resultant vector. Dito naman, inad muna yung B plus C. Yan yung vector E. Vector E. And then, saka inad yung vector A. So A plus E. Yan yung magiging resultant vector ngayon. So now we can see that vector addition is also associative. Okay, so pwede naman natin i-add directly. Okay, like vector A muna dun sa buntot ng vector B at dun sa buntot ng vector C. So yung unang vector A, yung buntot niyan, at yung huling vector C, yung ulo niyan. Okay, pag connect natin from the starting point to the end point, then we have the resultant vector. Of course, hindi nagmamatter kasi nga, hindi nagmamatter kung alin ang unahin natin dyan kasi nga commutative naman ng vector addition. So, in this fifth figure, inuna muna yung vector B, then dinugtong siya sa vector A. So, imbis na A plus B, ginawang B plus A. Then, dinugtong siya sa vector C. Of course, ang starting point natin ngayon is yung unang vector, which is vector B, yung buntot ng unang vector, vector B. At yung ulo ng huling vector, which is vector C. So, yeah. And in all cases, pare-pareho lang yung vector R. So, using yung associative, tsaka commutative properties ng vectors. Okay. Okay. Now, there's also a vector difference, hindi ng vector sum. To get the vector difference, we note na ang isang na ang negative ng isang vector, like vector B for example, is just vector B na opposite in direction. So ang ibig sabihin is this: if we want to do A minus B, na kung saan yung A ay ganito yung orientation at yung B ganito yung orientation, ang gagawin natin is itong vector B ay i-flip natin. So flip natin yung vector B. So now, if this is vector B, then this represents negative B. And this is still vector A. So to get A minus B, what we're essentially doing is to get A plus negative B. Okay, and then now we can use yung graphical method natin for vector addition. Okay, so head to tail. Diba? So vector A muna, and then idugtong natin sa vector B, sa vector ng negative B. So yung buntot ng A is the starting point, yung ulo ng negative B is the end point, and yung resultant vector. Oops. Nagalaw ko ata. Undo. Then yung resultant vector. Ay from the starting point to the end point. Yan na ngayon yung ating A minus B. Similarly, pwedeng mauna yung vector B muna. And vector negative B. And then i-add mo sa vector A to get the resultant vector A minus B. Another way to add it is by joining yung heads naman ng dalawang vectors. So A, idugtong nyo sa vector B, vector B hindi negative B. At yung dalawang buntot nila ay pagdugtongin ninyo. From the first vector to the second vector. And that's the resultant vector, vector B. Okay. Next operation is multiplication of a vector using a scalar quantity. So pag sinabing scalar, wala tayong pakialam dun sa direction ng quantity na yon. Okay? So we're multiplying a scalar quantity by a vector quantity. Okay? This is easy enough. So if you have a vector A and you multiply it by 2, okay? So mangyayari lang dyan is madodoble yung magnitude ng resultant vectors in relation dun sa vector A. Okay, so this is vector A multiplied by 2. So yung vector 2A is just twice the magnitude of vector A. If you multiply a vector by a negative scalar, so halimbawa, if you multiply vector A by negative 3, now hindi lang magbabago yung magnitude, magbabago rin yung direction. So if this is vector A, then the magnitude is multiplied 3 times. However, dahil sa negative sign na ito, magbabago rin yung direction niya. Okay, so originally, vector A was pointing to the right. And dahil sa negative sign na yan, nagpo-point na siya dun sa left. So yung resulting vector is a vector which has 3 times the magnitude of vector A pointing to the opposite direction. Okay, so now that we know how to add vectors graphically, okay, makikita natin na may mga limitations sa paggamit ng method na yon. Kasi ano bang limitations? First of all, kung papansin nyo, parang tinatansya-tansya lang natin yung um, mga magnitudes, di ba? So, to really get a feel, to really get the magnitudes, kailangan natin ng ruler and then kailangan din natin ng protractor. Of course, kailangan din natin ng something to refer yung direction against, di ba? And the way or yung something na yon ay tinatawag natin na reference frame. And in this case, ang gagamitin natin ay yung Cartesian coordinate system. Okay? So ang gagawin natin is we are going to place a vector in a Cartesian coordinate system and quantify yung vector na yun in terms of quantify yung magnitude and direction ng vector na yun using yung coordinate system na yun. Okay. So, dito, nilagay natin yung vector A dun sa Cartesian coordinate system. Kapansin nyo na yung vector A ay, yung buntot ng vector A ay nandun sa origin. Okay. At, dinowing natin yung vector A from the origin like so. Now, yung vector na yan ay merong angle with respect to x. Okay, so yung angle with respect to the positive x-axis, okay, ay tinatawag natin na theta. At yung length ng arrow ng vector A ay yung magnitude ng A. So now the direction is described in terms of the angle theta. And the magnitude is described in terms of the length of the arrow. We can get yung tinatawag na projection ng vector A onto the x-axis and onto the y-axis. So pag sinabing projection, basically is this. Imagine niyo na meron kayong tawag dito flashlight. Okay, may flashlight kayo dyan. Okay, so may ilaw, okay, na nagaano sa direction na yun. Ngayon, yung vector A na yan ay magpuproduce ng shadow. Okay, dito sa x along the horizontal. So kung dingding yung x na yan at may flashlight kayo dito, okay, so yung vector A na yan magpuproduce ng shadow. Yung shadow na yan is yung projection ng A onto yung x-axis. Okay? Okay. Similarly, if we want to get the projection of A onto the y-axis, imagine niyo lang na mayroong flashlight dyan, okay, at may ilaw na iniilawan yung vector A, magkakaroon ngayon ng shadow yung vector A na yan doon sa y-axis. Ito yung magiging shadow niya. Okay, at yung shadow na yan is the projection of vector A onto the y-axis. Okay, now to quantify yung mga projections na yun, gagamit tayo ng trigonometry. Okay, so notice that this is a right triangle. So itong nandito, yan ay isang right triangle. And if this is the angle theta, yan ang angle theta, then this means na ito yung opposite side at ito yung adjacent side. Okay? Now, we represent yung projection ng A onto the x-axis. So projection of vector A onto the x-axis as A sub x. Okay, and so yung A sub x ngayon ay yung length ng adjacent side. And alam natin from trigonometry na cosine theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so A here is just the magnitude of the vector. So which means na A sub x is equal to A cosine theta. Okay, so similarly, yung projection of A onto the y-axis, A sub y, we get from trigonometry then. We know that sine theta is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, and the opposite side has a length of AY. Ang hypotenuse is A. So we get AY is equal to A sine theta. Okay. There are a few things na kailangan nyo i-note dito. Remember that yung angle theta is always with respect to the positive x-axis. Okay, yung angle theta na ito is with respect to the positive x-axis. If you remember that, then you are allowed to use this equation. Kasi these equations, okay, were derived based on the idea na yung angle theta is referred to the positive x-axis. Okay? Okay. Now, alam natin na yung vector or quantity can have a direction anywhere. So, this means na the vector can have an orientation similar to this one, or another vector can have an orientation similar to this one. At kung ilalagay niyo yung vector na yan dun sa Cartesian coordinate system, so in this particular case, itong vector B na ito, it has this magnitude and this direction, angle theta. Okay, mapapansin nyo rin na nasa second quadrant siya ng Cartesian coordinate system, okay, which will immediately tell us na ang x component, okay, o yung projection ng B onto the x-axis is negative. Okay, kasi nasa second quadrant. At yung projection ng B onto the y-axis ay positive. So yung x component ng B ay may negative sign at yung y component ng B ay may positive sign pag yung vector B ay nasa second quadrant. Pag yung vector C naman dito sa example na ito, which has this magnitude and this direction, okay, ay nasa third quadrant, then we expect na both x component at saka y components ng vector C ay negative. Okay. So it's important to keep this in mind kasi later on pag gumagawa na tayo ng calculations, makikita nyo na yung resultant vector will have components with certain signs. And depende kung ano yung mga signs na yun, natin malalaman kung nasa aling quadrant siya. Okay. And we need to know that para magkaroon tayo ng check and balance dun sa ating solution. Okay. Okay. Now, kanina we obtained the vector sum using graphical method. Now, we're going to find the vector sum using components. So, ang gagawin natin is, we're going to add vector A and vector B. But to do that, we first draw vector A like this. And then we get the components of vector A along the x-axis and along the y-axis. Remember na ang component ng A, if this is angle theta, okay, is, along the x-axis ay a cosine theta. And along the y-axis, it's a sine theta. So this length here is a cosine theta. And this length here is a sine theta. Then, idudugtong natin yung vector b. Ganyan. Okay. Okay, now here's the tricky part. Okay, kasi kanina kasi lahat ng vectors nilagay natin sa origin. So we can imagine a new origin here. Okay. Okay, kasi ba't natin kailangan imagine yan? Kasi kailangan natin mag-define ng angle na theta. So ito yung ating angle na theta para sa vector b. Okay. Now yung vector b na yan, magkakaroon ngayon ng component along the x-axis, which is this. Oops. So bx is equal to b. Dapat i-differentiate natin yung yung a tsaka b. So tawagin natin itong theta a, and then tawagin natin itong theta a, and then theta a, and then tawagin natin itong theta b. So b cosine theta b. Okay, napansin nyo lang, theta b, nirefer ko pa rin sa positive x-axis. Okay, with respect to the positive x-axis pa rin siya. And then yung component ng b along the y-axis ay merong delta b sine theta sub b. Okay. So, ang mangyayari ngayon is basically we're adding so kung ilalagay natin itong bx na ito dito, so we're adding itong ax na ito at saka yung bx na yan. Okay. So that will be the component of the resultant vector along the x-axis. Similarly, we're now adding, ilagay natin yung bx, by dito. We're now adding ay at saka by. Okay, and that will be the component ry of the resultant vector. So yung resultant vector ngayon, okay, has this magnitude from the origin towards this point. Ano yung point niyan? So, if we draw a parallel line parallel to this vector, and then another parallel line parallel to this vector, okay, yung intersection nila, yan yung endpoint. Ito yung starting point. So, starting point to endpoint, yan na yung vector r. Okay. Now, yung angle is not so straightforward. Okay. So, ito ngayon yung angle na theta r. Theta r. Okay, but we can still use trigonometry here. Okay. Since we know yung ry tsaka rx, okay, alam natin yung rx tsaka ry, alam din natin na from trigonometry, tangent theta r, okay, ito yung theta r, ito yung right triangle natin, and ito yung hypotenuse, so ibig sabihin ito yung opposite, ito yung adjacent. So opposite is ry, and yung adjacent is rx. So theta r is equal to r tangent inverse ry over rx. Yung magnitude, of course, is just the sum of the x and y x components of the individual vectors. Okay, so in other words, yung x component ng resultant vector is the sum of the x components of the individual vectors A and B, and yung y component, okay, ng vector R is just the sum of the y component of A and the y component of B. Okay, so this method now allows us to really quantify yung addition ng vectors. Okay, hindi tulad dun sa graphical method. So using the graphical method, we can certainly verify kung itong nakuha natin sa component method is the same. Okay. What about if you have, okay, so siguro kumpletuhin lang natin itong yung magnitude R, okay, magnitude ng vector R, okay, is just equal to R. Okay, and since ito ay right triangle, okay, right triangle, then we know the Rx squared plus Ry squared. And if you take the square root of that, it will just give you the magnitude. So ito yung ating magnitude ng vector R at ito yung direction ng vector R. Okay. So what about if you have a vector that's in 3 dimensions? Okay, so dito medyo mahirap imagine itong vector na ito kasi you have x, y, and z, okay, na Cartesian coordinates. Okay, and yung vector A ay nandoon sa 3-dimensional Cartesian coordinates na yun. Ganun pa rin yung gagawin ninyo. Mahirap lang yung graphical method, of course. Pero yung component method is pretty much the same. Okay, so you take the component of A along the x, y, and z axis. Okay, and then if you're adding multiple vectors, okay, then you simply break down lahat ng mga vectors na yun into their components. Tapos add nyo muna component by component. Add nyo muna lahat na nasa x-axis, lahat na nasa y-axis, at lahat na nasa z-axis. Tapos saka nyo ulit pagsamahin. Okay? You can get the direction, the magnitude gamit itong equation na ito. As for the directions, that will take a little bit more trigonometric skills, okay, para i-determine kung ano yung x, y, and z components. Okay? And it's best done pag meron tayong kino-consider na example. Okay. So now let's consider an example. So in this example, okay, we have a postal employee, okay, who is driving a delivery truck along the route shown in the figure. So determine the magnitude and direction of the resultant displacement by drawing a scale diagram. Okay. So gagawin ko is lalakihan ko ng itong figure ng kaunti. So we can draw the figure. So ano yung scale diagram dito? Let's see. Ano ba gamitin ito? Okay, so anong magiging resultant vector natin dito? So it's pretty straightforward, okay, to draw a resultant vector here. Okay, so you don't see it pero gumagamit ako ng some sort of ruler dito. So I'm going to draw a straight line. Let's see if this works. Oops. Okay, wait a second. Oh, okay, so, well, it almost looks like a straight line. Okay, so yan yung ating resultant vector. Okay, and if we take a look at yung, so syempre mag-drawing tayo ng coordinate system dito. Ito yung ating positive x-axis and positive y-axis. Okay, so that we can determine yung direction of theta. Okay. Okay, so paano natin alamin yung direction yan? So we can use this ruler, for example. Okay, and let's see. Ilidikit ko lang to dito somewhere. And then based on this, so it's somewhere nasa 38 degrees or 39 degrees, tama ba? Kung tama yung aking ano. Yan. Okay, so I'm just trying to imagine a straight line from the starting point to dun sa final position na 38 degrees. Okay, so 38 yan. So dito ang ginawa natin is graphical, basically. Nag-drawing tayo ng straight line from the starting position to the ending position, and then kumuha lang ako ng measuring device like a protractor to determine yung angle, okay, with respect to the positive x-axis. Can do that component by component. So horizontally, okay, horizontally, ano-ano yung mga displacements. So may displacement ka na 4 kilometers, okay, dahil dito sa vector na ito. And then may displacement ka na ganito yung length, okay, which is basically yung component, x component ng 3.1 kilometers along the x component ng 3.1 kilometers. So that's 3.1 kilometers times, kung ito yung angle na 45 degrees, that's cosine 45 degrees. And this gives us 6.2 kilometers. Vertically, ano yung displacement? So may displacement na 2.6 kilometers. And then yung displacement na vertical displacement dahil din sa 3.1 kilometers na yun, which is ang tawag dito yung component ng 3.1 kilometers along the y-axis. So that's 3.1 kilometers times cosine ng 45 degrees. Oh, sorry, sine ng 45 degrees. Okay, and that gives us 4.8 kilometers. So itong buong distance na ito, horizontally from the starting point to the end point, that's 6.2 kilometers. At itong distance na ito from the starting point to the end point vertically ay 4.8 kilometers. So yung resultant vector natin ngayon, okay, has a magnitude of 6.2 kilometers squared plus 4.8 kilometers squared. Take the square root of that. That will give us 7.9 kilometers. Okay, and yung angle na theta is just the tangent inverse of 4.8 kilometers divided by 6.2 kilometers, okay, which is equal to 38 degrees. Okay, so natsambahan natin yung 38 degrees kanina. Tignan natin yung length nitong mga to, no? So 38 degrees. So 38. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then I can move this here. So halimbawa yan. So hanggang doon. So kung bibilang tayo, here's 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.8 units. Okay, so that's 5.8 units. Okay, and then i-rotate ko to ng 0. Okay, so if I put equity in starting position natin, so 5 point, ito na lang gamitin natin, yung 4 kilometers. So 4 kilometers is so 1, 2, 2 point, oops. 2 point, dito ako dun. 38, okay. Dali lang. 1, 2, 3, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.4, not 5.8, 5.4 units. Okay, ito naman, 0. So ay 2.8 units. Okay, so if 4 kilometers is to 2.8 units, tapos ang na-mention natin is 5.8 units. Okay, then ilang kilometers? Ilang kilometers yan? Okay, hindi siya 5.8 units, kundi 5.4. 5.4 units. This will give us 7.7 kilometers. Okay, ang nakuha natin sagot is 7.9. So more or less, okay na yung sagot natin graphically. Consistent siya with the component method. Okay, and ang tawag dito, kaya lang tayo nagkaka-error dahil yung pag-measure natin gamit yung ruler ay hindi ganun ka-accurate. Okay. Okay. So let's consider another problem. Okay, for vectors A and B, use the method of components to find the magnitude and direction of the vector sum A and B, the vector sum B and A, the vector difference A minus B, and the vector difference B minus A. So dito, use the method of components. Okay, so we use the method of components to do that. So alam natin na ang resultant vector A plus B, yung muna natin gawin. Ang components niyan is AX plus BX, and yung components niyan along the y-axis is AY plus BY. Okay, so kunin muna natin yung component along the x-axis. So ito muna ang gawin natin, A plus B. So letter A. Okay, so Rx is equal to AX. Ano bang AX? So ito yung vector A, wala siyang component along the x-axis, di ba? So 0 plus BX. Anong component ng B along the x-axis? Okay. So pansinin nyo yung angle dito is 30 degrees, pero with respect to the y-axis, which means na ang angle with respect to the x-axis is 60 degrees. So yung component ng B along the x-axis ay 15.0 meters times cosine ng 60 degrees. Okay. Now this gives us 7.5 meters. Ang component ng resultant vector along the y-axis is the sum of the components of A along the y-axis and components ng B along the y-axis. Yung A ay may component na negative 8.0 meters. At yung B ay may along the y-axis ay may component na 15.0 meters times sine ng 60 degrees. Okay. So this gives us 5.0 meters. So yung resultant vector ngayon is Rx, which is 7.5 meters squared, plus Ry, which is 5.0 meters squared, square root, equal din ngayon sa 9.0 meters. And yung angle, okay, is just, or yung direction is just tangent inverse ng y component, which is 5 meters, divided by x component, which is 7.5 meters. And this gives us 34 degrees. Okay, now let's check. So if I get this vector at idugtong ko dito, okay, more or less ganyan yan. Ang resultant vector ngayon is this. Okay, now kung mapapansin nyo, yung resultant vector na yan ay nasa first quadrant. Okay, which is expected kasi yung component along the x-axis is positive at yung component along the y-axis is also positive. So yung angle na in-expect natin is between 0 and 90 degrees. And yung angle na na-compute natin is 34 degrees. And kung titignan nyo rito, 30, this is about 34 degrees, diba? More or less. Okay, so lahat ng computation natin dito ay consistent. And that's how you know, okay, na, or how you can assure yourselves na yung ginagawa niyong solution is correct. Okay, now consider natin ngayon yung vector, yung second problem, B. Okay, so yung vector sum na B plus A has components. So let's say na yung resultant vector is R. Ang components niyan along the x-axis ay bx plus ax. And along the y-axis, ang component ng resultant vector ay by and ay. So ang rx ngayon is bx is 15.0 meters cosine 60 degrees plus ax, which is 0, equals to 7.5 meters. And along the y-axis, it is yung bx muna, which is 15 meters times sine 60 degrees plus negative 8.0 meters. This also gives us 5.0 meters. So again, ang resultant vector is 9.0 meters. Okay. Pareho dito. And yung direction is 34 degrees. Okay. And we expect that kasi vector addition is commutative. Okay. Now, during class hours, or pag face-to-face na tayo, yung every hour, at the end of each hour, mag-break tayo ng mga 10 minutes. Okay. But since you're watching this asynchronously or sa video, you can take a break anytime. Just make sure na gamitin nyo itong 2 hours na ito na allotted for Physics 101, okay, para panoorin yung video lessons natin. Okay, don't waste yung 2 oras na yan kasi pag hindi nyo pinanood to, kailangan nyo panoorin yan in the future and mag-accumulate lahat ng mga 2 hours videos na yan. Okay? Okay. So let's continue. Ang gagawin natin next ay yung vector difference na A minus B tsaka B minus A. Okay, so yung vector difference naman na gagawin natin ay ganito. So let's start with A minus B. So let the resultant vector be equal to A minus B. So the x component of the resultant vector is just AX minus BX. And the resultant vector of the y component of the resultant vector is just AY minus BY. So letter C na tayo, no? So sa letter C, yung if you could solve for the x component, Rx, A minus B. So AX has no component along the x-axis, 0. And BX is 15 meters times cosine ng 60 degrees. So this gives us negative 7.5 meters. Ry is AY, which is negative 8 meters, minus BY, which is 15.0 meters, times sine ng 60 degrees. Okay, so negative 21.0 meters. So ang resultant vector natin ngayon has a magnitude of negative 7.5 meters squared plus negative 21 meters squared square root. Okay, and if you do the math, you'll end up with 22.3 meters. Yung direction ngayon ito is obtained from this equation, tangent inverse ng y component, negative 21 meters, divided by yung x component, negative 7.5 meters. And pag ginamit yung calculator, this will give you negative 70 degrees Celsius, negative 70 degrees as an angle. Okay. Now, so, tignan natin graphically ano kung anong nangyari. So graphically, yung negative B should be here. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, yung A, pag dinuto natin yung A dito, so yung resultant vector would be something like this. So this is the third quadrant. So it's tawag dito. That's more or less 70 degrees. Okay, pero okay, remember that this angle is with respect to the positive x-axis. Okay, asan ang negative 70 degrees dyan? Kasi negative 70 degrees actually is pag ganyan, di ba? Kasi negative 70 nga siya. Okay, pero yung actual na resultant vector ay nandito banda. Okay? Okay, so ano nangyayari? Alam natin na yung angle o yung vector, the resultant vector ay nasa third quadrant kasi parehong negative yung sign dito. So, anong gagawin natin dito ngayon? Well, ang gagawin natin is yun ang limitation kasi nung ano. Kaya negative 70 yan kasi limitation ng calculator. Yung calculator ninyo okay, was designed to give you an angle between negative 90 degrees okay, and 90 degrees. Okay, yan yung sa calculator. Okay, wala tayong magagawa dyan. Okay, So, ano ang fix dito? So, ano ang tamang angle dyan? So, ang gagawin natin is, ay magdadagdag tayo ng 360 degrees. Dyan. Okay, so, yung direction niya is 360 degrees plus or minus 70 degrees. Dinagdag natin yung 360 sa 70. Ang makukuha natin ngayon ay 90 to 90. Ang gagawin natin is magdadagdag tayo ng 180 dun sa 70. Okay. Ignore niyo yung sign na yan. So, mangyayari ito yung 180 natin. Tapos ito yung 70. So, that's 180 at ito yung 70. Now we have the correct orientation. So, the correct angle is 250 degrees. Okay, yan yung tamang direction. Okay. Ngayon, gawin naman natin yung B minus A. So, yung R, yung resultant vector natin yun is B, vector B minus vector A. So, yung X component ng R is BX minus AX. And yung Y component ng R is BY minus AY. So, RX ngayon is BX, which is 15 meters times cosine ng 60 degrees minus AX. Ang AX ay 0 kasi walang component yung A along the x-axis. So this gives us 7.5 meters. Now RY is BY, which is 15 meters times sine ng 60 degrees. Okay, minus AY, so minus negative 8.0 meters. And this gives us 21.0 meters. So yung resultant vector ngayon is 7.5 meters squared plus 21 meters squared, square root. This gives us 22.3 meters. And yung angle is tangent inverse ng 21.0 meters divided by 7.5 meters. Okay, which is equal to 70 degrees. Okay, now we know na tama ito kasi this gives us, these two are positive, yung X and Y components are positive. So, in-expect natin na yung angle ay nandun sa first quadrant. Okay, balikan natin konti yung previous na solution. Okay. When you do this sa calculator, by the way, hindi pala positive, sorry. Hindi pala hindi 70 degrees ang ibibigay sa atin, kundi positive 70 degrees. Okay? Which means na it will be somewhere here yung resultant. Yun yung sinasabi nung result from the calculator. So kaya tayo nagdadagdag ng 180 dun sa 70. 180 plus 70. Okay, para itapon natin siya dun sa tamang orientation. Okay. So ito lang yung mistake na ginawa ko kanina dun sa previous na calculation. Okay. Okay. So, meron na tayo nung nagawa na natin yung 4 na calculations na yun. Okay. Now, anong napansin natin? Vector, yung resultant vector na A, B is just a negative of the resultant vector now, B, A, which is expected. Kasi negative B plus A is just A minus B. Okay. Ngayon, i-consider natin yung special kind of vectors which are called unit vectors. Mhm. Ano ba unit vectors na ito? So they're called unit vectors because they have a magnitude of 1 and they only point at specific directions. Okay, so meron tayong unit vector na sorry, okay, which points in the direction of the positive x-axis. Okay, so yun yung unit vector na I. Okay, now another unit vector, okay, is a vector that points along the direction of the positive y-axis. Yun yung unit vector na j hat. Not shown here is a vector that has magnitude 1. It points in the direction of the positive z-axis. Okay, that's k hat. Okay, so again, these are vectors which has magnitude of 1 and that points along the positive x, positive y, and positive z directions of the Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, now we use them para mas madaling isulat yung sa component notation. Okay? So what I mean is, if you have a vector, na vector A, yung vector na yan ay mayroong components na AX at saka AY. So, ang vector A na may component na AX at AY, ay pwede natin i-represent in this way. So, vector A is written as yun. Okay, so vector A vector A is written as okay, anyway, vector A is written as yung component niya along the x-axis. And then, lalagyan natin unit vector. Okay, kasi component siya along the y-axis. Okay, and then, plus A plus AY, component ng A along the y-axis, then J hat. So, pag may nakita kayong unit vector na I hat, yung coefficient niya ay automatically yung x component ng vector na yun. At pag may nakita kayong unit vector na J hat, yung coefficient niya is yung y component ng vector na yun. So, this is the x component of vector A, and this is the y component of vector A, and yung indicator ay yung mga unit vectors na yan. Okay? So, ngayon makikita nyo rito na yung unit vectors only point along the positive x, positive y, and positive z directions. Unit vectors na I hat, positive x, unit vectors na j hat para sa positive y, and unit vector na k hat para sa positive z axis. Okay, so that actually will help us a lot later pag nag-solve na tayo ng mga problems which involve vector quantities. Okay, so let's consider this example. Now, this example is asking us na in each case to find the x and y components of vector A. So dito, yung sa una, sa letter A, yung x component is 5.0 I hat. Sorry, yung vector A is equal to 5.0 I hat minus 6.3 J hat. Okay. Immediately, yung x component, alam natin na 5.0 at yung y component is negative 6.3 just because yung 5 is coefficient ng I hat at yung 6.3 coefficient ng J hat respectively. Sa letter B, yung vector A ay 11.2 J hat minus 9.91 I hat. So yung x component ng vector A is yung coefficient ng I hat. So dito 9.91. At yung y component ng vector A is yung coefficient ng J hat, which is 11.2. Sa letter C, okay, ang A ay merong ay sinusulat as negative 15.0 I hat plus 22.4 J hat. So AX is negative 15.0 and AY is 22.4. Again, dahil coefficient sila ng I hat at saka J hat respectively. And then letter D, yung A is 5.0B, where B is 4 I hat minus 6 J hat. So this gives us 5.0 times 4 I hat minus 6 J hat. So 5 times 4 is 20 I hat minus 30 J hat. So yung X component ng vector A is 20 and yung Y component ng vector A is negative 30. Okay. Now, use the same figure. Okay, in this case, ang gagawin natin is we use the unit vector notation. Okay. So it's the same problem basically, pero we are going to use the unit vector notation instead. So yung vector A ngayon ay given by AX I hat plus AY J hat. At ang AX is 0. So 0 I hat. At ang AY naman is negative 8 meters J hat. So vector A is negative 8.0 meters J hat. Vector B is BX I hat plus BY J hat. Okay, so BX is 15.0 meters times cosine ng 60 degrees I hat plus yung BY is 15.0 meters times sine ng 60 degrees J hat. Okay, or 7.5 meters I hat plus 13 meters J hat. Okay, so to get letter A, to get A plus B, we have 0 I hat plus negative 8.0 meters J hat plus yung B ay 7.5 meters I hat plus 13.0 meters J hat. Okay. Ang i-add natin dito ay yung pare-pareho ng unit vector. So we only add 0 and 7.5 together kasi pareho silang coefficients ng unit vector I hat. And i-add natin yung negative 8 at saka 13 kasi pareho silang coefficients ng J hat. So ang result is A plus B is equal to 7.5 meters I hat plus 5.0 meters J hat. Okay, so if we assign this as yung resultant vector R natin, so we have R equal to yung X component which is 7.5 meters squared plus yung y component, which is 5.0 meters squared. This gives us 9.0 meters. And yung angle is just a tangent inverse ng 5.0 meters divided by 7.5 meters, which is 34 degrees. Eh, makikita nyo na consistent yan dun sa solution natin kanina. Okay. Okay, now let's go to letter B. Let's solve for the vector sum of B plus A using component methods or using unit vector methods. Okay, so B plus A, so let R be equal to B plus A. So B plus A is 7.5 meters, I hat plus 13.0 meters, J hat plus negative 8.00 meters, I hat. Again, ang idadagdag na natin ay yung magkakaparehong coefficients. The coefficients ng magkakaparehong unit vectors. So dito, we add 7.5 and negative 8. And we get, 7.5 and 0. So J hat ito, no? J hat. Okay, 7.5 and 0. So we have 7.5 meters I hat. And then 13 meters minus 8. We have 5. So plus 5 meters J hat. So we have exactly yung resultant vector kanina dun sa A plus B. Okay, so this means that we get exactly the same magnitude, 9.0 meters, and direction. Tangent inverse ng 5.0 meters, 7.5 meters, so 34 degrees. Okay, which is just as well kasi A plus B is equal to B plus A. Kasi nagko-commute na sila. So letter C. Ang letter C is A minus B. So if the resultant vector is A minus B, then we have A, which is negative 8.0 meters, J hat minus B, which is 7.5 meters, I hat plus 13.0 meters, J hat. So R is equal to negative 7.5 meters I hat, okay, minus 21.0 meters J hat. So this gives us a magnitude of R of negative 7.5 meters squared plus negative 21 meters squared square root. So this gives us 22.3 meters. Tapos yung angle theta is tangent inverse ng negative 21.0 meters divided by negative 7.5 meters. And this gives us, again, 70 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees. Okay, again, hindi 70 degrees talaga yung ano dito. Idadagdagan natin ito ng 180. Okay, kasi kung makikita nyo, negative at saka negative yung x and y components, dapat nasa third quadrant siya. So dagdagan natin ng 180. So this is the correct angle. The correct direction is 250 degrees. Okay. Now, finally for letter D, you have B minus A. Okay, so R is equal to B minus A. Okay, this gives us um, 7.5 meters I hat plus 13 meters j hat minus negative 8.0 meters j hat. So yung resultant vector ngayon is 7.5 meters I hat plus 21 meters j hat. So ang magnitude nito ngayon is 7.5 meters squared plus 21 meters squared square root, and yung angle is tangent inverse ng 21 meters over 7.5 meters, which is 70 degrees. Okay, now this is nasa first quadrant ito kasi both x and y components, okay, ng resultant vector r ay positive. And binaw na tama na itong angle na ito. Okay, makikita natin na yung b minus a is just the opposite of a minus b based on dun sa angle nila. Okay. So I left you an exercise para isolve ninyo. Okay, and i-send ko yung solution sa next na meeting, and i-check niyo yung solution ninyo against yung solution na pinesend ko para dun sa exercise din. Okay, now we are going to discuss yung vector multiplication. Now, there are two ways to do vector multiplication. And one is called the scalar product, and the other is called vector product. Okay, anong difference ng scalar product tsaka ng vector product? Well, basically, mathematically, one just uses yung sign, and the other uses yung cosine. Okay, but in terms of physical interpretation, okay, that will depend on the quantity that we are talking about. Like, for example, sa work, okay, we use a scalar product to describe yung definition ng work. And dun sa quantity na torque, we use a vector product to describe yung to describe yung definition ng torque. Work kasi is a scalar quantity, and on the other hand, yung torque naman is a vector quantity. So, in this slide, makikita natin na kung paano ginagawa yung scalar product. So, by definition, ang scalar product is A dot B, and yung magnitude is AB cosine ng phi, where phi is the angle between vectors A and B. Okay? So kung ito yung vector A, and ito yung vector B, ito yung angle na phi. Okay? So, ang in-expect natin na result dito is a scalar quantity. So wala tayong in-expect na kahit anong direction. Okay, now how do we interpret ang scalar product? Basically, it's just the projection of A onto B or the projection of B onto A. Okay, so pag mathematically, this is A B cosine phi, and this is B A cosine phi. Geometrically, we're actually taking the x or the component of B along the vector A. So kung ito ay vector B, tignan natin yung component niya along this line. Ito yung component niya, at yung component niya is B cosine phi. And then we multiply B cosine phi with A, and that's AB cosine phi. Similarly, if this is vector B, tinitignan natin yung component ng vector A along this line. Okay? So ito yung component ng A along the direction of vector B. Yan ngayon yung A cosine phi. So multiply natin yun yung with vector B. It'll make sense much much better pag nagdi-discuss na tayo ng certain quantities, certain physical quantities later. Okay. So yung scalar product can either be positive, negative, or zero. Depende sa angle between A and B. Okay. For example, dito sa unang example na ito, dito sa unang figure na ito, yung angle between A and B is between 0 and 90 degrees. So yung scalar product nila is positive. Pag yung angle naman is between 90 and 180 degrees, yung scalar product nila is negative. Dahil yung component ng B along the line, along the direction of A is in the opposite direction of A. So kaya naging negative yun. On the other hand, pag yung yung vectors B and A ay may angle, may orientation na right angles or yung angle between them is 90 degrees, yung dot product nila or yung scalar product nila is zero. Okay? So nabanggit ko yung scalar product, it's also called a dot product, particularly because we use a dot notation para dun sa scalar product. Okay. So, for vectors A, B, and C, find the scalar products A, B, A dot B, B dot C, and A dot C. Okay, so this is straightforward. So, oops. A dot B is equal to A, B cosine of the angle between them. Magnitude ng A is 8 meters. Magnitude ng B is 15 meters. And angle between them, so ito yung angle between them. This is 90 plus 60, so that's 150. So it's cosine of 150 degrees. This gives us negative 104 meters. Okay, B dot C. Equal ngayon yan sa magnitude ng B, which is 15 meters. Magnitude ng C, which is 12 meters. And yung angle between them, which is 25 plus 90 plus 30. So that's 55 plus 90, 145. Cosine ng 145 degrees. So that will be equal to negative 147 meters. And that product ng A and C ay equal sa A, magnitude ng A, which is 8 meters, magnitude ng C, which is 12 meters, and yung angle between them is tawag dito 90 minus 25. So cosine ng 90 minus 25 degrees. So that's 40.6 meters. 40.6 meters. Okay. Now, in terms of unit vectors, I dot I is equal to 1. Okay, bakit? Kasi yung magnitudes nila ay 1 times 1, and then yung angle between them is 0. So, equal yun sa 1. This also means na ang J hat dot J hat is equal to 1, tsaka K hat dot K hat is also equal to 1. Now, I dot J hat is equal to 1 times 1 cosine ng 90 degrees kasi yung I nakaturo sa x-axis at yung j nakaturo sa y-axis. So yung angle between them is 90. So 0 yan. So I dot k hat is also 0. Yung j hat dot k hat is also 0. And then so on and so forth. Okay. So nabanggit ko lang din yan kasi pwede nyo rin gamitin yung component notation. Okay, unit vector notation to solve for itong anong tawag dito, unit vectors na ito. Itong operation na ito, a dot b. So let's do a dot b for example. A dot b is equal to. So yung a, maalam natin from before na negative 8.0 meters I hat plus yung b. Okay. I-review natin ano yung b ulit. Okay, yung b is sorry, dot product pala to. So yung A is negative 8.0 meters I hat dotted to B, which is 7.5 meters I hat plus 13.0 meters J hat. Okay, so anong mangyayari dito? A dot B. So ang A dot B is equal to negative 8.0 meters times 7.5 meters. I hat dot I hat. Okay, that's equal to 1. Okay, so negative 8.0 meters times 7.5 meters. Okay, times 1. Kasi I hat is 1. Ito naman, negative 8.0 meters times 13 meters. Tapos I hat at J hat, that's 0. Diba? So, this gives us negative 104 meters, which is the same as yung nakuha natin kanina. If we generalize this, let's say A dot B is equal to AXI hat plus AYJ hat dotted to BXI hat plus BYJ hat. Anong makukuha natin? So, unang-una, AX, BX, I hat dot I hat. So, AX, BX. Next, we have AX, BY, pero I hat dot J hat. So that's 0. And then susunod ay AY, BX, J hat dot I hat. That's also 0. And finally, AY, BY, J hat dot J hat. That gives us AY, BY. So A dot B is equal to AX, BX plus AY, BY. Now you can use this to solve for B dot C and A dot C then. Okay, so I invite you to do that as sort of a practice. Okay. The other type of vector multiplication is called the vector product. So ang ginagawa dito is you're multiplying two vectors, vectors A and B with each other. So AXA, vector product of A and B, yan yung representation niya, and vector product of B and A, yan yung representation. It's also called a cross product. Kasi gumagamit tayo cross to symbolize yung vector product. Okay, now, dito sa vector product, it will give you a vector, okay, as an output. Okay, ibig sabihin yung A cross B will give you another vector, C. And yung B cross A will also give you another vector. Tawag dito, well, B cross A will also give you another vector. Okay. Okay. So in terms of how do you find yung direction ng vector na yun? Okay, first of all, yung magnitude muna. Okay, so yung magnitude ng A cross B, that's quite straightforward kasi it's just A B sine theta phi, where phi is the angle, okay, between A, vectors A and vector B. Okay, what about tawag dito yung direction? Now, yung direction is a little bit tricky. Okay, kasi ang gagawin nyo is you use your right hand. Okay, so dito na papasok yung right hand rule. Okay, so kung yung A yung unang vector, ilalagay niyo yung palms nyo pointing in the direction of A. So nakaturo muna sa direction ng A. And then, i-close nyo ngayon yung fingers nyo towards the direction of B. Okay? Kung saan nakaturo yung thumb, dun yung direction ng cross product ng A and B. Yung B cross A, ito na yung medyo tricky na part kasi syempre babalik na rin yung kamay ninyo. Again, magsa-start kayo sa B, ituro niyo yung palm nyo doon. Okay, tapos i-swing nyo yung direction ng fingers nyo papunta sa A kasi B cross A nga. So, kung saan nakaturo yung thumb, dun yung direction ng B cross A na product. Okay? So, makikita natin dito ng A cross B is actually the negative of B cross A. Kasi opposite sila in direction. Ito nakaturo sa baba, ito nakaturo sa taas. Okay? Okay. Now, furthermore, if we consider unit vectors, okay, ito lang yung mga unit vectors na magsusurvive. Kasi unit vectors na pareho sa isa't isa, okay, if you cross the unit vector to itself, it will give you 0. Simply because, di ba, I cross I is just, yung magnitude nito is just 1 times sine ng angle between them. So that gives you 0. Okay? So, basically, para matandaan nyo yan, ang gawin nyo is drawing kayo ng ganito. Okay, you're drawing, sulat yung unit vectors that way. Okay, so I cross J is K, or J cross K is I, or K cross I is J. Okay? And kung babaliktad yan, halimbawa J cross I, nagbaliktad siya dun sa arrow no, with respect to the arrow. So J cross I, negative K lang yun. So J hat cross I hat is negative K hat. Or I cross K is negative J hat. And then K cross J is negative I hat. Okay. Okay. So yun yung mga kailangan nilang matandaan at this time. Okay. So let's do this exercise. Okay, it's actually the same exercise, pero instead of doing the cross product, the dot product, we'll do the cross product. So gagawin lang natin is A cross B, letter A. Well, we'll do A, B, and C. We'll take the magnitude of each of them. Okay, and then in terms of unit vectors, A cross B lang yung gagawin natin. So A cross B, yung magnitude nila is 8 meters times 15 meters. Tapos yung angle between them is 150 degrees, diba? So 90 plus 60, okay, this gives us 60 meters. Anong direction? So if you put your fingers in this direction, okay, palms facing that direction, and then you swing your fingers sa direction ng B, okay, makikita nyo na yung thumbs nyo nakaturo away from the paper. Okay. So, or out of the paper. So in direction is out of the paper. B cross C is equal to 15 meters times 12 meters times sine ng 30 plus 90 plus 25. So that's 145 degrees. And this is 103 meters. 103 meters. So, again, B, ilagay niyo yung palms nyo facing this direction, hands nyo facing the direction, palms nakaturo doon. Swing nyo ngayon yung fingers nyo towards the vector C. Okay, and makikita nyo na yung thumb nyo nakaturo out of the paper. Okay, so yung direction is out of the paper. Okay, and then A cross C, yung magnitude niyan is 8.0 meters times 12.0 meters times sine ng 90 degrees minus 25 degrees. So that's 87.0 meters. So A cross C, pag ginawa nyo ito, lagay nyo yung palms nyo facing this direction and then you roll it towards the direction of C. Makikita nyo yung direction is into the paper. Okay, now since itong X is indicated by unit vector I hat, itong Y is indicated by unit vector J hat. If you use yung right-hand rule, I hat to J hat, yung unit vector na nagtuturo out of the paper is positive K hat. So pwede natin itong sulot as K hat, ito as K hat, and ito as negative K hat. Okay, so now let's do a vector rotation. So for A cross B, we have, so ang A is 8.0 meters I hat cross. Okay, ito ay ano naman ito? Let's recall again. 7.5 meters I hat plus 13 meters J hat. Okay, so we have 8 times 7.5, and then I cross J. Ano I cross J? Oops. I cross J. I, J, K. So I cross J is K. So we have negative 8.0 meters times 7.5 meters. So K hat. Okay, and then plus, ito naman, 8 times 13. So negative 8.0 meters times 13 meters. Sorry, J pala to. J cross I hat. So negative K yan. Okay. Tapos ito ay J cross J. Ang J cross J is 0. Okay, so this gives us 60 meters K hat. 60 meters, 60 meters, and then K hat, K hat. Okay? Iwan ko na sa inyo to do these, to do these other vector products, okay, by yourself. And then I'll show you the solution sa next na meeting. Okay.